All right, so it's about that time to start. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Webinar Wednesday. My name is Franklin, and I'm the Product App Specialist for Kits and your webinar host. Now, all you know already, this is where you need to be to learning those tips and tricks of Kits to ultimately helping you become that supercharged power user. Now, if you have any questions for today, you can easily send them over into the chat box. That's going to be located on the GoToWebinar control panel. Should be on the right side of your screen. We will be taking questions after today's webinar. Basically, we'll go over any of the questions posted. So I'll try to monitor as best as I can. In case I miss any questions, we'll make sure we take care of those questions at the end of the webinar. All right, so today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at integrating Kits into your workflow and best practices to using Kits. All right, so we're going to be looking at basically what's the best way to use Kits, or we're going to take some examples because there's many ways you can actually utilize Kits based on the type of salesperson you are. But we are going to take some examples, and we're going to look at how we can actually again utilize the features of Kits to helping us become better salespeople, or helping us sell much faster using Kits. All right. We're also going to be looking at the basic use. We're only going to touch upon this because we did talk about this last week. In case you missed last week's webinar, Julia will be posting that. I don't know if she already has, but it will be posted, and you should be able to review last week's webinar, either going to our Kits Knowledge Center or going to our YouTube page. Okay. Also, we're going to be looking at, and we're going to touch just a little bit on this, but setting you up for success. That's creating simple standard scenes that you can refer to. This is all about utilizing Kits and integrating into your workflow. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what's the best way to name your projects, and that actually works with communication with your work team, either other salespeople or your design team that you work with. Okay, and lastly, we're going to also talk about a little bit about organizing with folders. And then we're going to quickly look at best practices, how to manage your content, again, creating working projects. That also kind of talks about naming conventions. And then we're going to also talk about, again, communicating with team members and clients. Okay, now there are a few quick tips that you should also keep in mind. If we don't have any time, at least you can keep this in the back of your head. Understand, some of the stuff that you have available, such as the KOE catalog. It's great to also have your top 5, maybe top 6 here. I've listed 6 items that I like to refer to. And also I like to utilize other apps on the iPad, such as the Notes, to help me save email addresses and text, just to save time so I don't have to type these out all the time. These are going to be standard notes. I talk about it all the time when I'm creating free forms or whenever I'm sending communications out. Having these already pre-saved in your notes, so you could just copy and paste into your Kits documents. Okay? All right, so with that being said, let's begin with today's webinar. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is utilizing Kits and integrating it into your daily workflow. So this actually covers such a broad spectrum of Kits and the different types of sales and salespeople that are out there. Now, I've kind of just broken it down, let's say, between 3 types of salespeople, and these are, I guess you can say, your standard types. So we have a traditional salesperson, we have your mobile salesperson, and then we also have, which is somewhat newer, your remote salesperson. Now, if you're not sure what remote salesperson may be, there are quite a few dealerships that exist that actually don't have brick and mortar. And so their salespeople work per region, and a lot of what they do is online. And because of the type of technology we have nowadays, communication is quite easy, especially if you're out of state or if you're, this type of remote salesperson. So I look at these 3 different types of salespeople. These are the 3 types that we normally deal with and that normally use Kits. And so when we talk about utilizing Kits into your daily workflow, I don't mean about, just, the best practices that we talk about, syncing and all that stuff, making sure you're updated. Those all actually are facets of integrating Kits into your workflow. What I mean is understanding the type of salesperson that you are so that you can go and you can utilize kits and take advantage of the features that are available to you. Okay, so if we look at a traditional salesperson, a traditional salesperson could be that working out of the office that has their sales accounts that they take care of. They may have repeat customers that will always go to them, or contracts that they work or contracted to for several years. These are typical salespeople that work within a dealership that, again, can be mobile because they have to, see their clients. But traditionally, we'll work with a design team, with a sales team to creating the project. So when we talk about a traditional salesperson, we want to talk about how we're going to integrate kits and how it's actually going to benefit that traditional salesperson, right? So whenever we talk about kits, we always talk about the basic uses of kits. And last week we touched upon this, using kits as your ultimate digital resource. That's really what it is. It's a digital resource that's quite enhanced that allows you to actually pull product and specify it and apply finishes, okay? There's nothing quite like that for any kind of mobile device. In fact, the ones that do exist that are out there still require you to use some component of a desktop computer that's more robust to creating the project first and then being able to play with it on a mobile device. Kits allows you to create everything right on the device that you prefer. Whether you're a Windows 10 user or whether you're an iPad user, it doesn't matter, okay? So we want to look at, how is this going to best benefit a traditional salesperson? Well, again, it's understanding the basic uses of kits. It's a digital resource. And then also understanding how to manage those features. So basically, if I'm going to follow a traditional, let's say a traditional project, we get the call into sales about a pending project that we're going to be bidding on. This actually gives me the time to actually set up my kits so that when it comes time to actually meeting my client, we can actually sit down and get down to the nitty-gritty without having to waste any time and putting more focus into engaging the client and getting the information that we need in order to be successful with the sale, okay? That's most important, is that engagement between you and the client, right? Because we have the ability to do the work in the office as well as doing the work at the client site, all right? So it takes a bit of both. Again, kits will allow you to circumvent a lot of the traditional practice, such as going through a design team, by allowing you to creating that solution in front of your client, or at least starting that or getting that thought starter out there. Okay, so for any traditional salesperson that's out there that is familiar with this type of practice, what I always suggest you start off with are your standards. Okay, what are going to be your go-to typicals that you're going to bring to every project? There could be a specific manufacturer that you sell. You could be working with a primary manufacturer, such as if you work for a Steelcase dealership or any other dealership that has a primary manufacturer tied to it. There could be ways or you could be again a dealership that works mainly with open market product. What you want to do is you want to set yourself up for the most success by setting up your kits so that no matter what type of situation you're in, you always have something to refer to. Yes, we have these planning typical galleries that you can always get to that allow you to see all the different types of typicals that you can use as thought starters with your clients. These typicals are mainly there to assist the salespeople. Great if they can create or generate a sale based on the typical itself. But the idea of the typical that the typicals that we've created are there to allow you to create those thought starters with your client. What I urge everybody to do is think about the standards that they want to create or they want to take, so that when they go to see their clients, they can take these projects with you. And these are the type of projects that you're going to be most knowledgeable with, right? Because the best salesperson is the one that has the utmost product knowledge, where when it comes down to it, and the client will throw you in for a loop, you can quickly refer back to such a tool such as kits and find a solution quickly. Okay, so here you can see I've just created a few standards. So here I have my first standard, and this is my original that was created in May 2018. Actually, in fact, I used this to create, I created this for a Wednesday webinar. So here you can see it could be a traditional media office that I would normally refer to whenever I'm working with my client, especially this one having the certain angles that diminishes viewing angles, so that when you put up a screen up here, no matter where you're sitting, every person in the meeting space can actually have a view of that media space. I mean, it's little tidbits that do help, depending on the client that you're working with. So these are the type of standards that I would traditionally create. Here I also have a 900 square foot learning center. So when I look at this standard here, I look at not just the tables inside and the storage units that I have, I'm also creating a standard building, because we know that we may not be able to utilize some of the other features, such as taking a photo environment of the client space. What I'm doing is I'm pre-creating these environments, 900 square feet, looking at traditional sizes of spaces that I may be working on based on the type of furniture that I sell. And I'm creating these environments using the KOE catalog. Okay, there's no reason why you can't go in there and start setting yourself up with creating standard private offices, 6x6s, 8x8s, giving you the capacity to actually creating the boundaries and being able to put in the furniture so that the clients can actually see what the furniture would look like within the context of a building. I mean, that's most important. That really translates well, or that translates well with the client, because they can actually truly see what the furniture looks like within those boundaries. Okay, so again, you can see here, I have this learning center, but most importantly, I have this learning center and I have this building that I've created that surrounds it. So the standards don't just have to be furniture standards; they could be environment standards. Okay, so these are all different things that you can use to help you with closing that sale fast with your clients. So again, if we look at it for a traditional salesperson, we have a digital resource, we have a set of standards that we could always refer to. Now, this can translate to other types of sales as well, but then you also have a way of communication using the quick sheets, the DXF files. These are all features that you should already be aware of, because if you're trying to close that project quickly with your client and you want to get information quickly to your, let's say, your design team that you need to work with, well, once you create that project, you should be exporting that file directly out to your design team so they can validate that project. See, these are all things that we have set up. Then you want to start looking at, what's the best way of communicating these documents? Well, you want to find a naming convention that works best. And usually what I like to use, if I go back to one of my other projects here, usually what I like to use are, let's just open this up, is my last name, who the client is. So here we have my last name, who the client is, what the project is for, what specifically we're working on in the project, and then I like the date timestamp, or I like to stamp it with the date as to when we created that variation. Okay, this way you can always track your progress, and you can always go back to your sales. Okay, now if we're looking at using kits and we're a mobile salesperson, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're able to manage the content. Okay, so what I mean by that is you always want to make sure that you're updated with your sync, but most importantly, you want to manage what you're actually syncing. Okay, because again, being a mobile salesperson, you're usually out of the office, in the field, visiting clients, engaging them to find out what projects are out there. Sometimes they'll give you a call. Sometimes they're out of state. Whatever the project is, whatever the situation is, you want to make sure that you set up kits, again, to helping you be becoming successful. So again, when I talk about kits and it being a digital resource, what you want to do is you want to manage that resource. Okay, you don't always have to have every catalog available to you. In fact, you already know in most times what you're walking into. Okay, the type of project that you may be working on, you already know the type of manufacturer that you might want to sell. But what you want to do is you want to think about, again, other areas or other things that may come up, such as budgetary issues, anything that can throw you a curveball. So what I like to do as a salesperson, especially when I'm going on a mobile sale or I'm going out to see a client, is I want to make sure that I understand the manufacturer that I'm going to promote or that I'm going to try to actually close with, but I'm going to prepare myself with some budgetary manufacturers or maybe budgetary lines within the manufacturer that I want to promote. Okay, so I'm going to manage the content that I have on my iPad. I'm going to make sure I have the right planning typicals. I'm going to make sure I have the right catalogs. And I'm going to go into that meeting confidently, because we already know once you sync all the content to your iPad, it remains on your iPad. You don't need that Wi-Fi connection. Okay, so just in case you didn't know this, once you sync the content to your iPad, it remains on your iPad. You don't need to be connected to Wi-Fi to use kits. Okay, the only time you need to connect is when you need to connect to our cloud or when you need to send out any kind of documentation such as a quick sheet or an email through the app. All right, so this really does help a lot of salespeople out there that, again, don't have a Wi-Fi connection when they're remote, may not have Wi-Fi access at their client site, but once you understand all this and you prepare yourself, you can manage the content that's available to you, managing the catalogs that you're going to need, as well as the planning typical. So when you actually go to your client, you have everything there and prepared for you. This also touches upon, again, what we just spoke about in traditional sales. You may want to also have your set of standards and anything that you feel is necessary for you to close your sales. Okay. Now, when we talk about a remote salesperson, we talk about, what are the advantages and disadvantages? Well, for one, the advantage there is sometimes you can actually sell at a lower price point because you're not paying for brick and mortar. Okay, so that kind of helps you with a little bit of the sales. Now, what are the cons? Well, you're remote. You don't have that FaceTime with the client, and we already know as salespeople that FaceTime that you have with your client, it could sometimes be the separator between you closing that sale and you not closing that sale, right? A lot of times, the people that we work with, purchase from us is because they have that relationship with us, right? Almost 90% of our sales are based on relationships. So, again, I'm a firm believer of that. I may be, maybe not, it may not be for every salesperson, but that's sort of how I build, my sales and the clients that I work with. Okay, so as a remote salesperson, you want to think about kits, and you want to know and you want to understand how can you utilize kits in a way that will help you sell your, help you close your sales. For one, you can utilize kits as a presentation tool. Okay, so when you're talking to your client, you want to start thinking about third-party software that allows you to reflect your iPad screen, such as the one I'm using here, that allows all our webinar viewers to see my screen. Okay, this is a tool called Reflector. It's made by a company called Squirrel. It's a great tool. It used to have its issues with some of the lag that we are experiencing, but they fine-tuned a lot of it, and a lot of that is also based on your Wi-Fi connectivity. So again, being a remote salesperson, you want to think about, okay, what's the best way of translating what I'm doing on kits to my client? Well, if I have tools such as strong Wi-Fi, I have a reflector tool such as Reflector here that I'm using. I can use kits as a way to present my ideas. Okay, so again, you want to go ahead and see all the different ways you can use kits. When I talk about it being a presentation tool, we already know that we have different views that you can go through with kits. Let me just get into it here, such as we have our thumbnail view, which I was just in. Again, is a great way to present all the different thought starters that you may want to present. Okay. Then you can go deeper, and then you can go into full screen modes where you can see larger renderings, and these are all done in best renderings so that the client can really see what the furniture looks like. You have some details that you can go through by tapping on details. This is usually marketing information. And again, this is stuff that you should already be reviewing because, if this is a specific line that you're selling, you want to know that marketing information beforehand so that you don't have to refer to it. Okay. We also have configured list prices, and this is mainly to help the salesperson to understand what they have available to them at what price points. Okay. We already know that as a salesperson, we want to protect our sales by controlling as much information as possible that our client sees until we're ready to close that sale. So then we allow you to go into full presentation mode, which allows you to, if you tap on the image one more time, which allows you to see the rendering without the obstruction of any kind of text or details such as pricing. This way you can talk about the project, and as you're going through here, whether or not you know exactly what the client wants, this is a great way of presenting all the different ideas to the client based on what you can produce for them. Okay, so again, being a remote salesperson, being a mobile salesperson, or even being a traditional salesperson may be slightly different in respect to the type of sales that you work on, or even the sales environments that you work in. That's also important to understand. But there's a lot of crossover between what you should have already prepared in kits to making you successful. Just to look back, the things that you should take away from what we just spoke about are, again, being prepared, having that product knowledge, understanding what's available to you in kits, understanding how you can use kits, again, as simply as a digital resource or as a presentation tool, and then all the other softwares or apps that are out there that will only help you, again, with presenting your ideas to your salespeople, to your clients. Okay. All right. So now that we've covered a little bit of integrating kits into your workflow, again, you want to look at best practices. So what are the best practices? First off, I spoke about this before, and a lot of the best practice that we always drill into all our users is, first off, managing the content. Okay, this means managing all the content that's in your kits, such as old projects. You want to do spring cleaning. You want to make sure that you optimize your iPad as best as possible by deleting old projects. If there are certain projects that you don't necessarily want to delete, but you want to sort of keep some kind of digital copy of it, then what I do suggest is finding that old project. Let's just go all the way back down here. And let's see, that looks like 2015, okay. So I'm going to open up this old project here. Now, there may be issues with the project because this was created in 2015. And what I mean by there may be issues is the manufacturer has most likely gone through many changes in terms of the product line or their statement line of their catalog set. Okay. However, if this is still a project that you want to maintain, then what I suggest you do is you send yourself a digital copy. Okay. What I mean by that is tapping on the share icon and exporting that AutoCAD DXF and ZIP file. Okay. That way it creates a digital copy. And then if ever you want to refer back to it or you want to put it back into kits, you can get your design team to convert that DXF file, or if you have a DWG converter, there are some free ones online. You can easily take that DXF file, convert it into a DWG, and then you can import it back into Kits. Okay, so again, for all those that like to keep their old files, you want to keep a digital resource or a digital copy of your file, send out that DXF and CIF file to yourself. Okay, but make sure that once you do that, that you erase the project. Okay, after cleaning up your project, what you want to do, or cleaning up your project screen, what you want to do is you want to run a sync. Okay, what that sync does is it updates your account on our cloud, and it creates a copy of the current status of your iPad and all the projects that are on there. All right, this way, again, it's that fail-safe backup. So if anything happens to your iPad, you can always revert back to the last time you ran a sync. Okay, then you want to manage the content that's available to you. Okay, so this means making sure that you're removing catalogs that you're not using, because the more content you have on your iPad, when it comes to doing those updates, because the manufacturer has gone through a complete new conversion of data or of their catalog sets, what's going to happen is if you have, let's say, 20 manufacturers that are available to your account and you've downloaded every single catalog, and let's say there's a total of, let's say 100 catalogs, I can tell you right now, like having manufacturers such as Groupe Lacoste or Herman Miller having 102 catalogs, if I had 102 catalogs of Herman Miller, and then they went through a new data set and updated catalog, and I had to update it in Kits, I would have to update 102 catalogs. Okay, so that's why it's important to manage the content. If you don't need all those catalogs, then remove it, because you know that whenever you need a catalog, all you have to do is go back to the catalog subscription screen and make sure that you subscribe to that catalog you want and download it. Okay, to remove it is quite simple. All you have to do is uncheck the catalog that you wish to remove and then run a sync. Okay, anytime you add a catalog by tapping on the radio button, adding that check mark, that adds that project to an invisible sync list. So basically, anything that you want to sync to your iPad, it adds it to that list. If you tap on or uncheck any catalog, that adds it to a remove list. So once you tap sync now, that will either sync down the catalog or remove it from your kits. Okay, so manage the content that's available to you. That's certainly something that you should be doing always, so that, again, you're utilizing Kits as best as you can, and you're making sure that you're working as efficiently as possible. Okay, the less fodder or the less catalogs that you have to go through, the faster some of the processes become, such as, let's say you're doing a product search. And again, if I had 102 catalogs of Herman Miller and I'm searching for a guest chair, well, Kits is going to go through all 102 catalogs for Herman Miller, aside from any other manufacturers that I've downloaded on this iPad. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're working with the content that you want to work with, or the catalogs that you want to work with, so then you're not bogging down your work time. Okay. Then you want to think about how often you should sync. Okay, as a best practice, you should be syncing based on how often you create projects. So if you're a power user, you want to sync almost daily. Okay, what I normally do is I'll go into the office. If my Kits isn't already plugged in, usually I try to leave the office with Kits with my iPad plugged in. If it's not plugged in, I'm going to plug it in immediately. And then before I even see or check to see if there's any updates pending, I just run a sync. So then I walk away. I make sure that, again, and not all of you have this available, but I make sure that my auto lock screen is set to never. For most of you, you probably can only set it up to 15 minutes. So you should be able to grab a coffee within 15 minutes, unless you're running outside for a Starbucks. Again, what I like to do is I like to plug in my iPad, run a sync, get my coffee, come back, check my emails, and then just make sure that Kits is running okay and the sync is okay. So this way, I know, for one, first, it's creating a backup because it's updating my account on the cloud. And two, it's syncing down any updates that are currently available or any projects that have been shared to me so that I can start my day fresh and I have an updated Kits and I have everything that I need for that day. Okay, that's, again, if you're a power user and you work Kits often or you work with Kits every day, you want to make sure that you're also syncing every day. You can certainly sync once a week, but what I always stress that you do is you don't go no longer than once a week, because there are manufacturers out there that you may be subscribing to that have actually go through pricing updates and catalog updates. This could be monthly, this could be weekly, this could be bi-weekly, could be yearly. It really depends on the manufacturer. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're always up to date with the content, because you don't want to go to a client's office and start referencing from catalogs that are outdated. Okay. Next, you want to look at naming conventions. All right. So what's the best practice to naming conventions? So here you can see these are a set of projects that I've created. One thing that I forgot to share with you here is, again, when I talked about creating your standards, here you can see I have a traditional private office that I've created that's 225 square feet. Now, this may be something that you traditionally work with, but what you want to do is, again, you want to set yourself up for success by making sure that you have the right set of type of standards that you can always refer to. So now that I have this environment created, if I'm working on a project and I want to use this environment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and tap on it. Oops. I'm going to tap and hold it. Okay. I'm going to make sure it's highlighted. I'm going to create a copy. Here's my copy. As you can see, I'm going to go into this project, and then now I can work with my client based on the space that I already know that I have to work with. Here I can go into the planning typicals. Okay. Let's get into some executive desking here. Pull it in. And now you can start to validate without having to go to your design team. Okay, so you can see the importance of having these typicals already pre-configured to really helping you or setting you up for success. Okay, so now that I have a building that's created, and all I did was I created most of these buildings or these environments using the KOE catalog items that I have available to me. All right, so understanding what I have in Kits to creating this, can be easy. If you were to ask me, how did I know I needed to create an office like this? Well, I really didn't. What I did was I based it on experience of the type of private offices that I work with. I base it on what I can actually Google search. You can easily Google, let's say, a traditional, private office, executive office. You can even put the square footages, websites that are out there. Not that I'm trying to promote them, but you can go to House, you can go to Pinterest. They all have examples of all these different types of offices. They may even have the information that you need, such as the sizes. You can recreate these offices just by looking at the image and finding the best item in the KOE catalog that fits what you need to create. Okay, so if you already know you have walls, you can put up straight walls. If you need any kind of glazing, there's so many different glazing options in the KOE catalog, doors, etc. Okay, and then if you don't know how to actually use the product, because again, I'm not expecting everybody to be a designer, we're all salespeople here, you can easily contact our support team. You can even reach out to myself, and I will help you along the way to creating those environments. Okay, or at least giving you the know-how to creating those environments. So those are all things that, again, will set you up for success. Another thing that I like to do is whenever I create projects, I like to do variations of one project. Okay, so traditionally, whenever we use kits and we know we have to build a project, we're going to be building it in what we like to call as white space here, as you can see here. Okay, it's no environment. Once I have that layout created, what I like to do here is get into the KOE catalog and create an environment around it, based on, again, the situation that I know, based on the project that I'm working on. Okay. So anytime the client, or anytime that I'm going to be working with the client, I can always refer to these projects. And then lastly, what I like to do is, I mentioned this in the beginning about knowing your go-to items in the KOE catalog, is I like to do a KOE catalog enhanced. And here you can see what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create an image for the client, for them to visualize of what the space is going to be like. And, I may have stuck way too many people into this one space, but the idea is that I want to make sure that they can truly see how every feature that I'm creating for them, or let's say the design team has created them, I want to sell them on that feature. I want to sell them on this lounge space and how it's going to be used or how it may be used. It could be, what I like to do is I like to assign colors based on who the guests are and who the actual employees are. So usually I use white or silver for my employees, and I use blue or black for my guests. But here you can see what I'm actually showing the client is how this space can be used by the employees that are going to be working within the space, by the guests that are going to be visiting the space. Okay, so it really gives them this complete look at the possibilities with kits here. Okay, so again, as a best practice, I want to make sure that anytime I'm working on a project, I'm also thinking about what's the best way of communicating what I'm trying to create to that client. And here you can see, again, what I've done is I've done the traditional white space, added a tidbit with the environment, and then enhanced it with the KOE decorative items. Okay, so again, these are ways that you should actually be thinking about your projects now. I can see that there's a lot of repeat kits users that join these webinars, and so it's about time to start thinking about what's the best way of setting yourself up for success, right? And so this way, I know it does take time to actually doing this, but once you start to build one, you start to build two, you start to build three, this starts to become second nature to you. You start to actually go to specific items that you know fit well with the products that you're using. The more you understand about kits and the catalogs and the enhancements that we have ready for you, the easier it's going to be for you to pull from once you're trying to find those solutions for your client. Okay. Again, you want to look at naming conventions that are going to help you, such as what I mentioned before: last name, client's name, project name, what you're working on specifically in that project, and a date to stamp it with. Okay. Then you want to start creating these folders. If you don't know how to create a folder, all you need to do is tap and hold a project, drag it on top of another one, tap in the folder area, and now you can change that folder name to help you organize your project. Okay. You want to utilize your search function. In case you have a lot of projects, here you can see I have 460 projects currently saved on my iPad. So if I utilize my search function, what I can do is I can search for projects. And if you follow this and you repeat this and you use the same naming convention, finding your projects is going to be quite easy. Because then all you have to do is, I'm saying this, I'm using this as an example, but I use this for all my demos. If I'm looking for client XYZ, kits will begin to search for all the projects that have XYZ in the actual project name. Obviously, I have a lot here because XYZ is my go-to client name that I use for all my webinars. But you can see what that does is it pulls the project, not the folder. Okay, kids will always search for the project name and not the folder name. So once you have this naming convention all done, it becomes quite easy to finding those. Another reason why you should be using consistent naming conventions, again, is because if you're looking for specific projects, let's say you're working on a private office. Well, you know, for private offices, a lot of times I like to use just PO so that, again, I can quickly find all the different private offices that I've created. So this is a great way of utilizing the project gallery screen, again, as a way to present some ideas. Because now that I have these private offices that have appeared, and these are offices that I've created in the past, well, if I need to speak to a client, I can start referring to some of these and using them as examples as to what we can actually do for the client. Okay. So again, things that you should sort of be thinking about that'll really help you and set yourself up for success there. Lastly, what you want to do is your communication. Okay, understand that with any kind of project that you're working on, communication is key as to what you want to communicate to your client. This could be the quick sheets that you're sending out. This could be the cut sheets or the item quick sheets that you're sending out. If you're not familiar with what I'm actually mentioning here, if you tap on any item and you see on the left-hand side the option for a quick sheet, that is your item quick sheet. That is basically a cut sheet that you can send of the particular item to your client. You can add any information that you want by just tapping on these control switches here. Okay, then you also have your project quick sheet. And here, even though I have the KOE catalog items that are in, whenever you actually open up the project quick sheet, the KOE catalog items, such as the walls and the people that you see there, are suppressed from this sheet. So it doesn't create an obstruction of the list of parts that are actually required. So as you can see here, there are no KOE catalog items listed. Okay, so we've done that automatically, again, so that again, it is the best way to go through this list. You can actually validate the project to see if there's any outstanding specifications that need to be made. But then you can also control, again, what you want to actually send out to your client. So understanding the type of communications that you have, the documentations that you have available to send to your client is important. Okay. That also spills into working with your design team, right? So having this naming convention also helps all the people that you work with, such as sales groups, sales teams, customer service teams, anybody that you work with that is there that's going to put a hand in the project. Having a naming convention that's consistent allows everybody to understand quickly who the person is, what the project is for, and what exactly needs to be done. Okay. One last thing that, again, I want to make sure that you understand is whenever you're sharing your project or whenever you have to actually send out any kind of documentation and you want to use, let's say, a set of emails, you want to use certain notes that you're going to add to every project, you want to utilize your iPad notes. And what I've done is I've generalized here. I've just put myself in Julia as the KITS design team. But there's the email addresses that I have. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I copy only the email addresses. Go back to KITS. And now I can easily paste that into my recipient's email address here so I don't have to retype anything. Okay, so remember, understand that you have all these different apps that are available to you that will allow you to work more efficiently and not have to type the same information over and over and over again. All you have to do is cut and paste, and there you have it. Okay? And that's pretty much it, everyone. I tried to cover as much as I could, as broad as the the topic is. We just wanted to make sure we talked about certain facets of kits and how you can utilize into your workflow. I didn't want to just take you into all the features because we drill those features every day. We have a lot of resources that are available out there that'll help you learn those features. We really want to start focusing on what kits means to a salesperson and how you can actually integrate it into that workflow. Because the more we understand about how kits is, again, ultimately that digital resource, we can actually recognize how it's actually going to benefit us when we're working on our sales, no matter what type of sales you're in, traditional, mobile, or remote sales. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly go take a look if there are any questions. Let me just get into the question section here. Okay. So it says here that, okay, there's a few things, no sound on earphones. That might be the connectivity. I don't think there was anybody else that was experiencing that. Okay, and there's actually a note here from a client, from a user mentioning found Reflector Director on App Store for $6.99. Is that the one? Also, what cables do I need to share my iPad screen on my PC? Great questions to ask. Now, when I talked about using kits as a presentation tool, this really spills into, let's say, all three of the examples I used for the type of salesperson that you are. We already know that presentations, again, is a daily part of what we do as a salesperson. So understanding how we can use kits to projecting our ideas on screens that we have available, or let's say remotely on a computer meeting that we may have. What you want to do is you want to look at what's available out there for you. So in terms of Reflector Director, I'm not too sure if that's the correct one, but what you should be looking at is Reflector isn't necessarily an app that you can use. I know there are app versions of it, but what you want to do is you want to make sure that if you're going to use kits as a presentation tool, and you want to use it, let's say if you're remote, or let's say you're in the office and you're using WebEx or you're using GoToMeeting or JoinMe, and that's the type of online meeting tool that you use for your dealership. What you want to do is you want to set up the computer that you're going to be projecting from with Reflector. Okay, so if you just go into Google and you Google Reflector for iPad, you should be able to find it. In case you can't, send me an email and I can send you a direct link to that. Okay. Now, what are the type of cables that you need to share your iPad on your screen? Well, Reflector works based on Wi-Fi. So what we're actually doing is we're projecting the screen without having any wires tethered to the iPad. Okay, other than right now I have my iPad plugged in for power. Okay. So once you have Reflector, Reflector is going to require you to be on the same Wi-Fi network from the computer that you want to project on to the iPad that you're connected with. Okay, so once you're on the same Wi-Fi network, it'll recognize that your screen is trying to contact the host computer, and then you'll be able to reflect your screen onto that host computer. All right. In terms of any connections or adapters that you may require when you're out to see a client, I always suggest that you get the HDMI connector. Most clients now have let's say presentation monitors that have HDMI connectivity. You want to make sure that you have an HDMI adapter so that you can plug in and you can get your iPad onto the presentation screen. Okay. Other than that, are there any other adapters? I'm trying to think here. What do I traditionally use? Well, I have every type of adapter. So I have one for VGA, I have one for HDMI. I also have one for audio, which I never use audio, but I do have one just in case. These are all the different type of cables that I bring, and they're really, they don't really take up too much. It's literally about maybe 5 inches long, and it connects to the lightning adapter and so on. So, very minimal. They probably range around anywhere between $30 to maybe $50 in terms of price. But if you're a salesperson that does a lot of presentations, you want to start thinking about those tools. Okay. Next one here is, how do I get the webinar for just starters? Well, you know what? As I mentioned before, we do have our free training webinar that is going to be on, I believe it's June 14th. That is coming up tomorrow, actually. So tomorrow is our free basic training webinar. That is the webinar I do suggest for any beginner with kits. So if you don't have an email that was sent out by Julia to register, you can visit our Kits Knowledge Center. You can see here, and if you look at the chat box, you can see at the very top in the welcome screen, there's a quick link there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring it up. Okay, so this is our Kits Knowledge Center. You can go to the Resources tab, and here you can see the links to Webinar Wednesday, the Kits Community, or free training. Click on free training. Here it gives you a little bit, and then it allows you to register here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this link. Let's copy this link. And then I will paste it in the chat box. Okay, so all you have to do is go to that link, and then you can register here for tomorrow's free training webinar. Okay, the next one is going to be July 26th. So every month we run this once a month, and it's usually in the second week of the month. All right, last question here is, how do I get other vendors? Well, since we're on the Kits Knowledge Center page, here you have the link for manufacturers' catalogs. All you have to do is click on available catalogs. You can currently see all the manufacturers that we currently have in kits. Now, what I mean by currently having kits, these are already published manufacturers and their catalog sets. All you have to do is click on Request Manufacturer Access, and you can request for the manufacturer that you wish to have on your iPad. All right. All right. Well, that takes care of our very last question. So what we're going to do is we're going to chalk this one up to being complete. Let me just close all this. In case you ever need to review any of the past webinars, you can easily go to the Kits Knowledge Center, as I was just on. You can go into the resource, see all the different videos that are available to you, or you can go to YouTube. All you have to do is you can search for Kits, or you can search for Kits Webinar Wednesday, and that will bring up all the different webinars that we record every week. Okay, we know that a lot of the webinars repeat, but we try to make sure that we always leave the most updated webinar out there. All right, well, I do appreciate all our users joining me every week. So thanks to all our Kits users for joining me today. Don't forget, we're always looking for your submissions to becoming our next Kits collaborator, as you can see here with all our past collaborators. We really want your submissions. So it doesn't matter if you're a power user or a beginner. We really want you to participate in this. It's a great way to showcasing what you can do in Kits and really sending out all the different messages to all the other users about all the various ways that Kits can be used. Even just reviewing some of our past collaborators here, understanding how they were able to close their projects or what they did or you know, the experiences that they've been through. These are great ways to learn and understand how you can use kits and how it may help you in your next sale. So check out our Knowledge Center, check out our past collaborators, and then if you too want to become a collaborator, all you have to do is send us a submission of your experience, why you love kits or how it helped you in the last sale. And then hopefully you also send us a selfie with kits in it. And what we'll do is we'll showcase your project for a month on our Knowledge Center. Again, what we'll do is we'll award you with a $25 e-gift card to Starbucks for participating. It's really that simple to do, and it's really that easy to get a $25 gift card to Starbucks. Okay. Well, that's it for me today, folks. Thanks again for joining me, and thanks again for listening through and staying on and hearing me talk about utilizing kits into your workflow. I hope you really take today's webinar to heart and you look at what's the best way kits can help you in your next sale. Whether you're traditional, mobile, or remote, sometimes you're all three. It's understanding how kits can be used in any given situation. Once you start to understand that and you start to prepare yourself and you start to create typicals and standards, that will only help you and it will only set you up for success. Okay? So thanks again. I hope to see you guys right back here next week for Webinar Wednesday. Hope you enjoy the summer days. Have a great week, guys. Take care.